Story 1. So, this happened this past weekend, and I'm still kind of shaking my head at this one. I'm an amateur competitive shooter. I compete in several disciplines, but by far my favorite is cowboy action shooting. It's timed, high speed, and a lot of fun. Everyone dresses up as cowboys, girls, uses period weapons, and you pick your own cowboy name. That's right. We're nerds with guns. The best part about the community is that almost everyone tries to give back in some way. The way I choose is to dress up and donate my time telling folk tales at the local library, minus the firearms, of course. Several of the other club members will attend heritage days, fairs, and the like. Last week, I got a call from our club president. He told me that some of the members would be performing at a heritage festival a couple of counties over from me, and he asked me if I'd pitch in and help. I tell him that I'd love to and ask for the details. He gives me all the information and asks me to do him a favor. He wants me to bring the big gun. I laugh and tell him I'd be happy to. The big gun is my all-time favorite firearm, an 1874 Sharps Quigley, so named because it was used in the Tom Selleck movie Quigley Down Under. I won't go into technical specs, but she's a pig, roughly 4 foot long and weighing somewhere around 13 pounds. She's even made by the same company that made the rifles for the movie. She is too big, too heavy, too expensive, and I love her. Her name is Cora. If you saw the movie, you'll get it. So, I show up on Saturday, drag all my stuff to the booth, and basically stand around looking like a knockoff Tom Selleck. Now, there are some strict precautions taken when we do events like this. No live ammunition anywhere on site. We even went through our vehicles beforehand to make sure we didn't leave any in there by mistake. All weapons are transported in securely locked, hard-sided cases, and whenever they are removed, they have trigger locks on them. The club members that are performing will have blank rounds for fake gun fights, but those are kept in separate locked containers. While I'm standing around the booth, I answer any questions people may have. Yes, it's from that movie. Yes, it will shoot that far. No, I don't think I could do it. As this is going on, I see a boy, maybe 15, 16 years old, studying my rifle pretty intently. I ask him if he has any questions, and he proceeds to rattle off all the specs of the rifle to me. I'm impressed, and tell him that he really knows his stuff. He tells me that Quigley was his grandfather's favorite movie, and that he used to watch it with him before he died. We talk about the movie, and how awesome Alan Rickman was before he asks if he can hold the rifle. I tell him that I don't have a problem with it if he gets his parents to come over and give their permission. The kid runs off, and after a bit he returns with his father. I knew I was in for a rough time when the first words out of his mouth were, "Why won't you let my son touch the gun?" I could tell that this was typical behavior by the way that the kid turned bright red and stared at the ground. All the other club members had gone off for a performance, so I was alone at the booth with the kid and this idiot. I told the man, "Sir, I have no problem with him touching the rifle, I just want your permission first. He's a minor, and I didn't think it was a good idea to hand a firearm to him without your consent." The guy starts to yell at me, saying, "I don't see what the big fing deal is, it's not fing loaded." I respond with, "I take it he has permission." Of course he does. I tell the boy to go ahead. His face lights up as he hefts the rifle, grinning from ear to ear. He asks if he can take a picture, and I agree. I even took my cartridge belt off and let him wear it. Just dummy rounds. Only bullet and casing, no primer or powder. The kid thanks me and starts to walk off before his father stops him. "Do you want to play with any of these other guns?" I inform the father that I don't own those weapons, but he's welcome to wait and ask the people who do. He starts yelling about how he doesn't need permission, and how this is a free country, and that he can do what he wants. All this yelling gets the attention of the deputies that are patrolling the fairgrounds. A couple of them walk over and tell him that if he doesn't calm down that he will be asked to leave. He quickly tells his son that they're leaving, but before they walk away, I call out to him. I pull one of the dummy rounds out of my belt and ask, "Can he have this?" He mumbled something about not caring, so I handed it to his son. I tell the boy what it is, and that he can make a keychain or something out of it. I also handed him a club card with my email written on the back. I said, if you can get permission from another guardian who's willing to bring you out and sign some paperwork, let me know, and you can come shoot a match with us. I'll even bring Cora. I received an email from his mother this evening, and they'll both be joining us for a match in a couple weeks. Edit, to give a little more detail. The mother seemed very polite in her email. She was apologetic for the actions of her ex-husband, and thanked me for being kind to her son. Turns out that it was her father that the boy used to watch the movie with, and her ex is very resentful of anyone in her family. She apparently was made to watch it as well by her father when she was younger, so she is aware of the significance. The son was spending time with his father during the summer, and had begged him to take him to the festival. He had heard that there were going to be cowboy performances there, and he wanted to see them. Seems that his grandfather had been a fan of all westerns, not just Quigley, and he had shared that love with his grandson. The grandfather passed away last year, and the kid took it hard. I am a certified firearms instructor and first responder. I usually serve as safety officer of the day for whichever club I'm shooting at, and carry a trauma bag in my truck whenever I go to the range. Story 2. I never thought I'd have a reason to post on this sub, but here I am. For context, I'm a welder by profession. As far as I know, my job doesn't include working at the grocery store chain Publix. Or maybe it does, and in that case, perhaps I'm the fool. I doubt it, though. I'm also 19 with a baby face, so here I am, fresh out of a 10-hour workday, completely exhausted. My clothes were dirty blue jeans, a ruined gray shirt riddled with holes, burns, glue, and just generally filthy. I had tools hanging from my belt, a bandana on my head, and a dirty jacket to top it all off. To put it simply, I looked like I had just crawled out of the aftermath of a tornado on my hands and knees. I was already pretty tired and just needed to grab some groceries for dinner, so I went to Publix. I was pushing a cart with several items in it and not paying much attention. That's when I saw an older lady with a little kid, maybe 3 to 5 years old. She seemed upset, but I wasn't paying her much mind until she asked an employee nearby for help. He said something too quiet for me to hear and then mentioned he'd send someone else over to assist her. Let's call her Karen. Karen waited impatiently for about 2 minutes before a young black woman came over. This wouldn't have been an important detail to any sane, level-headed person, but it definitely upset Karen. She got this uncomfortable look on her face, as if she'd put a live beetle in her mouth. She said, no, I'd like someone else. We all know what that means. At this point, Karen was visibly frustrated because she felt she was being made to wait longer. The poor employee in the Publix uniform had a very, "what do I do now?" look on her face because Karen was still clearly upset but refused to say anything else. Karen eventually spotted me standing down the aisle and pointed her finger at me accusingly. Lightning might as well have struck in the distance because my fate was sealed. It was my fault, really, for glancing in her general direction. Without saying another word to the employee, Karen marched up to me with her kid in tow. "You," she said, like an overbearing person picking out their food at a fast food restaurant. No, more like a dramatic villain selecting their next target. I gulped. She continued, "I'd like you to help me. I need to know where the sunflower seeds are, and I'm also looking for a child. I need you to tell me where I can purchase a human child." Yes, a human child. Can you do that, you clueless person? Of course, that's not exactly what she said, but with all the intensity and condescension, it might as well have been. She was wearing heavy makeup, standing so close I could smell old coffee, that distinct older person scent, and something like tobacco. And those eyes, goodness, those eyes. She was now officially in my personal space, and I wasn't enjoying it. Hilariously, we were standing directly in front of the sunflower seeds, which I silently pointed to, my mouth hanging open in disbelief. I was stunned by the audacity of this woman and mostly just wanted to leave. At this point, the young employee who actually worked there had awkwardly shuffled away. Karen grabbed her sunflower seeds, and I tried to walk away. Hello? What about the rest of my list? You promised me a human child, she said, completely flabbergasted. Her kid was starting to look uncomfortable, trying to twist out of Karen's grasp and beginning to cry. At this point, I wondered if she had done this at another store, and that's how she ended up with this kid, who looked too young to be hers. I was still more or less shocked and tired, so I just said, "Lady, I don't work here." She scoffed and lifted the struggling kid into the cart. "Put me down, Mommy," the kid protested. Now I was just disappointed that she wasn't some deranged child snatcher, but instead just an entitled parent. She couldn't even be cool and evil now, she was just lame and annoying. What a letdown. You do work here. Now help me. You're one of the only white employees I've seen here, she said, which confirmed she was being racist earlier. Now, she was right about one thing. I am, in fact, white. I know, I'm sorry. I might be a bit biased because my fiancé is black, so maybe I took it more personally than another white person in my situation would have. But I scoffed right back at her. "Ma'am, look at what I'm wearing. Do I look like I work at Publix?" She just stared at me with a mix of confusion and self-righteous anger. "You do work here," she insisted. "Oh, my mistake. I must have completely forgotten that I'm employed at Publix. Sorry, oh all-knowing Karen, my bad. Please don't punish me. Wait, I just checked I was right. Phew, thank goodness I'm not the crazy one here." So, in a split second, my brain processed that I didn't work at Publix, did a double take, and thought, "Wait, I thought I didn't work here, but this lady is so sure. Do I work here?" Then I remembered again that I don't, in fact, work at Publix, and it hit me. Wait, since I don't work here, I have nothing to lose. I stared back at her for a moment before saying, "Actually, I don't work here, lady. And if I did, I wouldn't help a racist." And with that, I just left her there, no closure. On my way out, I gave the cashier a description of Karen and her kid, and they did whatever they wanted with that information. I don't know, and honestly, I don't really care what happened to Karen. Though her haunting eyes and foundation that didn't quite match her skin tone will probably haunt my dreams, like the specter or spirit from that Edgar Allan Poe story. I don't often stand up for myself, but in this case, I felt kinda happy that I did. Story 3. Background info. I'm a 19-year-old female working at a small Polish deli in my neighborhood. This incident took place while I was working alone. I was working my usual shift when a couple came in, about age 40 or 50, and their 2 kids, both boys and about 8-10 years old. Immediately, they are very loud, which I don't find too much of an issue because some families are just like that. My phone was recording video, pointed at the ceiling, from a previous customer who was causing issues, so I just kept it recording. I do this out of fear from a really bad incident I had a few years back. Anyways, the family is speaking Romanian and some English. Being an immigrant and English being my second language, I had no issues with them not speaking English too well. What I did have an issue with is how rude and obnoxious they were all being. The mother was constantly yelling at her son, along with the father yelling demands at me. I was asked to cut some bacon, which they got extremely angry at because I asked them how much of it they wanted. I noticed a car parked right outside on the road, which people often do, but due to the location of the store, they could get a ticket for being parked there. Trying to be nice, I told the father, "Hey, you might want to move your car. There's been a lot of people getting tickets recently." To which he replied with a smug face, "Look, if I get a ticket, I get a ticket. I got the money. They can ticket me." I say okay then and keep working. It was also an issue when I told them to please tone it down, as they were full on yelling at each other and nearly dropping multiple jars of food. I heard a bag open, and I saw that the 2 sons and the father had opened a bag of chips each. No problem, as long as they pay for it. The mother started drinking some open lemonade as well. Fine, I didn't care as long as they paid. After another 20 minutes of them scamming my store and being extremely loud and rude to me, they started to pay. As we are standing at the register, I notice the father start to pull some things into separate piles. I ask him, "Is this separate?" while pointing to the piles, to which he replies, Yes, separate. I say okay and keep ringing up the first half of the stuff. The mother and the two sons left the store and are standing right outside. I can see the open chips they took without paying. I tell the father the total, and he starts to pack everything into one bag, including the things that are supposed to be separate. He hands me the money and begins to try to leave the store. Excuse me, you haven't paid for everything yet, I say. He immediately plays dumb and acts like he didn't just tell me everything is separate. I begin to argue with him, telling him how he just told me this was all separate. He is full on yelling at me that he already paid, and then calls his wife over. I explain to her what happened, to which she scoffs and begins to also yell at me. I then say, "Ma'am, I have a video recording of your husband saying these are separate. Even if they weren't, you still need to pay for the other half." They look at me in awe. How dare I ask them to pay for products they took from my store? In the loudest, most condescending way possible, she asks me, "Why? Why do you need to pay for the stuff?" I ask, dumbfounded. She shakes her head yes. "Maybe because you're in my store, and if you want to buy something you need to pay." Immediately after saying that, she starts arguing with her husband. They eventually pay me by throwing money at me and slamming the door on their way out. To this day, I have never had customers as entitled as this. Story 4. Entitled Karen tried to take his groceries, then his car. So this isn't my story, but it happened to a friend of mine who I recently talked to the other night. Cast: my buddy the good guy, Karen, hell spawn, manager, and the nice cop. Anyways, on with the experience. Apparently my friend was on his way to get groceries in his 1980 Mustang that was willed to him by his deceased uncle. His uncle never had kids. He was happy to have been able to sell off his old junker and use the money from the car he had into getting this 1980s Mustang up to date and fixed in whatever way possible. It looked great. Silver with black stripes down the middle and black pinstriping, all done by his uncle who was once a mechanic and car painter. So he goes in, gets his week's worth of groceries, some sweets, stuff for work lunches, stuff for dinner, etc. Imagine a bachelor's shopping cart with some of everything for the next week or two. Anyways, he's about ready to check out and notices he needs to get milk and eggs for breakfast. Quickly runs back to the milk section and notices there is only one skim milk left, but is happy to take it. Karen walks up to him. "Karen, oh thank God, you're stocking the fridge. Here, you can just give that to me." My friend: No ma'am, this is the last one and I'm taking it. Also, I don't work here." "Oh well, you should still let me have it as my angel here needs milk to grow up big and strong," she said, gesturing to her hellspawn who is giving him a rude look. Okay? There's like almond milk or whatever, but I've been out of milk for a week and I need some for this week. Maybe try another store? There's XYZ place a mile away. Try there." "No, I need it now. You'll give it to me or I'll call the police." "Fine, do it. I'm leaving to check out, do whatever." Entitled kid: "Mommy, he's taking my milk." As he is walking off, they're talking and screaming about something, maybe trying to convince the brat that they have to go somewhere. He doesn't care. He just wants to remove himself from the situation as soon as possible. He goes and checks out, not seeing Karen or her demon anywhere, and makes his way to his car. He's about halfway unloading his groceries when he can hear the kid yelling to his mom. Oh no, she has come out of the store. So he picks up his pace a little, and I'm laughing hearing this over the phone, guessing what's going to happen next, thinking she will curse him out for being selfish and then speeding off. But boy was I wrong. She walks up to him with her cart and the hellspawn in tow and says, "Karen, wow, is this your car?" Yes ma'am, my uncle." She cuts him off. "That's not possible. You must have stolen it. There's no way a punk like you could afford a car like this. I should have it. So how much?" Now he cuts her off. "Excuse me. No, this is my car. Now get out of here." "Don't you dare. How dare you raise your voice at me? I'm calling the police for harassment." "Fine, do it. Let's see how the cops want to interoperate this." He finishes unloading his groceries and quickly puts his cart in the cart return. About 3 minutes goes by and a police car shows up. The nice cop comes out and says, "What's going on?" I was told there was a disturbance. My friend, yay she. Of course, she cuts in. "Oh, thank God you're here, officer. This punk was trying to steal my husband's car." The cop turned to my friend and asked if this was true. My friend looked at him and said, "No, it's not. She's making stuff up since I probably pissed her off for taking the last milk in the store, and she's been—" "No, he's lying. He tried to take my husband's car while I was looking away, and he's upsetting my baby. Arrest him now, officer." "Sir, what she is saying isn't true." "Okay, well, who has the keys?" "From there, let's see what the license and registration all say, and I'll even run the plate to make sure." So my buddy does exactly that, produces the keys, unlocks the car door, pulls out all the information, and the nice cop runs everything. After a few minutes, he sees that this car is indeed his and Karen was lying. "Ma'am, this is his car, and what you've done is highly illegal." "Sir, has she been harassing you since you were in the store?" "Yes, sir. Ask the manager to look at the tapes." They do exactly that, and the manager is happy to comply. From there, the officer puts Karen in cuffs, not because my buddy wanted to press harassment charges on her, but she was arrested for abusing emergency services, filing a false police call or something. He wasn't too sure, disturbing the peace and resisting arrest. Sadly, his ice cream melted in his trunk, but he said it was worth the cost of admission to watch a Karen get taken down a peg and put in cuffs. Story 5. In the spring semester of 1974, I, at the time 21, female, was a college art student specializing in printmaking, like woodcuts, etchings, etc. In the printmaking studio, we kept our expensive papers in flat files, which are long and wide, but shallow drawers. These were shared, 3 students assigned to each drawer. I was assigned to share a drawer with Hot Guy and Mean Girl, whom I knew from the fall semester. Both of them had seemed friendly enough. I didn't know she was mean yet, and it seemed that sharing a drawer with them would be okay. About a month into the semester, Hot Guy and I started flirting with each other. One thing soon led to another, and we started dating. Once Hot Guy and I became known as a couple, Mean Girl started acting very mean to me. She made catty comments about me in my presence, and she would sometimes walk over to a classmate and whisper something to them while grinning and locking eyes with me. She started flirting hard with Hot Guy, watching me closely to see if she was getting a rise out of me. If Hot Guy wasn't there, she would talk to me in a mean sing-song voice, telling me about how he would soon be breaking up with me. Now, I have never been a jealous person at all, but it did bother me that she was going out of her way to be spiteful to me. Then I began noticing that some of my papers were ruined with creases and mysterious stains. Now, we each had a large folder with our name on it to separate our papers in the drawer, so someone had to have removed my papers and damaged them before returning them to the folder and then the drawer. The 3 of us were the only ones who knew the combination to the lock on our drawer. Hot Guy seemed puzzled when I asked him about it, but Mean Girl, in that sing-song voice, said something about how those expensive papers were like boyfriends, because you had to take good care of them if you wanted to keep them. So, this rotten behavior went on until a couple of weeks before finals, and I hadn't said much to Mean Girl about it, but I had mentioned it to our professor and Hot Guy a couple of times. Late on a Friday afternoon, there were only a few people in the studio, and I was trying to finish an edition of one of my etchings. I had just gotten my plate, a 1/8 inch thick sheet of zinc with my design on it, inked and ready to print. As I was walking over to the printing press, Mean Girl intentionally bumped into me, knocking my plate face down onto the floor. When I picked it up, I could see that the image that I had worked on for weeks was irreparably damaged. Then she gave me a big evil smile and said, "Excuse me," in that sing-song voice. I lost it and started yelling at her. She responded by grabbing my hair with both hands and violently jerking my head all around. Then she started screaming, "Stop hitting me. even though I only grabbed her wrist to try to stop her pulling out more handfuls of my hair. Finally, she let go and took off, and I started ugly crying. I cried all the way downstairs and out of the building, all the way home, and all the way into the next day. When I returned to class the following Monday, 3 department heads took me to an office to discuss what had happened. I gave them my account. Then they told me Mean Girl said I attacked her unprovoked. She told them I had been treating her mean for months, because I supposedly knew that Hot Guy was going to dump me for her. After that interview, Hot Guy asked me to step outside to talk. He told me he had to break up with me because everyone in the department thought I had attacked Mean Girl in a fit of jealousy over him. He said he knew that it wasn't because of jealousy, but that it was still too much drama for him to deal with. So, I didn't get suspended or expelled, but my heart was broken that he didn't stand up for me. And because Mean Girl had so industriously spread her version of the incident, everyone in the department thought I was a maniac. The following fall semester, I was still in printmaking class with Hot Guy and Mean Girl, and one day I surreptitiously made a quick sketch of Mean Girl in profile. I took that sketch home and turned it into a small painting, including signature details like her hand-knitted green hat with the front brim folded up, her bright yellow rain slicker, and her mirror lens aviator frame glasses. There could be no mistaking who it was, but I made it very unflattering and creepy. That same semester, the department had a visiting artist from England who was a really big deal. One of his obligations while there was to make one visit to each studio subdivision of the art department, painting, drawing, printmaking, etc., and be a guest critic on critique day. On critique days, all students in a class line their most recent works up in front of the classroom studio, explain what they are trying to do, and listen to the professor's or guest critic's reactions and suggestions. On the next critique day, as soon as I placed my little painting at the front, there were gasps and jaws dropping from the whole class, and Mean Girl looked like her head might explode. Unbeknownst to me, this was the day that the visiting artist was the guest critic for our class. He began by quickly scanning our works, starting at the left and moving toward the right, until he reached my painting of Mean Girl, the last one on the right. He stood looking at my painting for several seconds, then moved back to scan them all from left to right again, coming back to my painting. Finally, he turned to address the class and said, "Most of what I see up here is pretty ordinary, like a basic breakfast of scrambled eggs with dry toast. But this," he exclaimed, as he pointed at my portrait of Mean Girl, "this is not ordinary. This is a breakfast of eggs sunny side up. This one comes with bacon and sausages, potatoes. The toast has delicious homemade jam. It's perfect." Then he asked who had painted it, and I raised my hand. He asked me what my inspiration was, and I replied that it was a portrait of someone who had tried to ruin me. "Well," he said, "I hope he is out of your life for good now, because he looks like a monster, a Frankenstein monster, so evil and nasty," and so on, with over half the class struggling to not laugh out loud, and everyone staring from Mean Girl to the painting, to me, and back to Mean Girl. I don't remember any other details from that day, except that I was thrilled this esteemed guest artist had loved my painting best, and referred to Mean Girl as he, a monster, and more. And that is how the tiny lowercase revenge that I had planned turned into a tasty, satisfying, all-caps sunny side-up revenge. Story 6. So, some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain. As someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store. It's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do almost all of the tasks. So this particular night I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want, overstock, or were damaged. There was a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones/ringtones, and some things like that. Though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I am deaf, I know sign language, have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I am in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I am very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Some kind people even sign with me. That always makes me smile. I am pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing-impaired person. So when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they're very apologetic. Not this time. This is where the story gets good. So I'm mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. Since this was earlier than I normally began, there were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in the paper towels section when I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around startled to see this lady. She's taller than me, and I'm no slouch. I'm 6'0" ft tall, or 72 inches. She is very thin, probably mid-50s, frizzy blonde hair only held back by a bright red hat atop her head. This was back in September of 2020, and of course she doesn't have a mask on. She begins to what I assume was yell, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I can't hear her. According to the nice customer, who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like, "I'm talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes." She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it violently, and it gets unsnapped from around my neck. She throws it to the ground. At this point, I'm very nervous and beginning to panic. I try to actually say I can't hear, but I'm not sure how it came out, as I've never actually heard my own voice. My partner says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the nice customer enters the picture. I see him round the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to Karen, asking what the problem was. This is all what he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. He then looks over to me, and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down, "I'm deaf and I don't know why she's yelling at me." The customer turns to Karen, and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at a kid like that?" And responses like, "He's not deaf, he's just ignoring me because he's lazy." This goes on for a few minutes, and I finally begin to cry, as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of my two managers, the store manager and regional district manager. The store manager walks up to me, while the regional district manager walks to the customer and Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. The store manager knows sign language and asks me if I'm all right. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. He then tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, both managers walked in with a police officer, and Karen had been arrested. The store manager explained to me in sign language that Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault, and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and give my statement. The nice customer stuck around, and I wrote him a thank you note. The store manager also gave him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm thankful that awesome people like the nice customer and both my managers exist. Also, Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount, and I honestly hope it destroys her life.